My name is Iris Lasky. I'm conducting an interview in English with Mina Todres. We are in the city of Sherman Oaks, California, United States of America. Today's date is September 9th, 1998. Let's start the interview, Mina, with you introducing yourself by giving your full name and spelling it.
My name is Mina Todres, and
Can you spell it?
yeah, Mina and Todres.
What was your maiden name?
Mina Schulman. Spell it. Schulmn. Schulman.
M-A-N?
A-N.
Okay.
A-N.
Were you ever known by any other names?
No, Bernberg. Yeah. I got married and my name was Mina Bernberg. And
How did you spell Bernberg?
Birnberg.
Any other names in
No.
your lifetime?
No.
When were you born?
The 1st of October, 1924,
What city and country?
in Berhomet. The city, that time it was Romanian. Right now it's Russia.
When did it turn to be Russia? Do you know?
After the Second World War.
How did you spell? Do you know how to spell Verhovit?
Bukovina?
Your city that you were born
Oh,
in.
Berhomet. Berhomend.
Verhomet, M-E-T.
Yeah.
Did you have any siblings?
Yes. I had two younger sisters.
What were their names?
One was Leah and one was Sylvia. And they all died in the Holocaust.
What about your parents? Their names?
My mother was Zipporah. Before she was married to Zipporah Grau. My father was Joseph Schulman. And they got married in 1921.
When you think back about your home, what do you remember the most?
The most I remember my parents and grandparents, and I have friends. Most of the friends perished in the Holocaust, but I have a very good friend who is in Israel, and I write to her. I came to visit her, and she came here to visit.
She is a childhood friend?
Yes.
What is her name?
Bertha Koppelman.
When you were growing up, what did you and Bertha like to do together?
We used to go to school together. We used to play together. We used to go to the Mizrahi together. We belonged to the Mizrahi. And there we were very close.
What was the Mizrahi like? What did you do?
Mizrahi is a Jewish organization, not a very Orthodox, but modern Orthodox. And we were always glad to come there. It was just wonderful to belong. The children were all together. And that's what I remember about my city.
What would you talk about when you were with your other friends? What were your goals for life?
Yes. I said, I just am not going to stay here forever in this place. That was too small for me. And they laughed at me. But I did leave and I went to Chernowitz. Chernowitz is the, like the capital of the state of of Bukovina.
How far was Černovec from Berhomet?
70 kilometers.
Before we go into your travels to Černovec, what was your celebrations for Jewish occasions like when you're home?
All the Jewish holidays were really celebrated in our home. And on Simchas Torah, they brought the Torah from the temple because we lived close. That time they used to bring it to houses. They brought it to our house. I was always so proud that they brought the Torah to our house.
Do you know why they would bring the Torah to your house?
I think because my father was there, a member who was much thought of, and because we lived the third house from the temple.
Did any other relatives or people live in your home other than your two sisters and your parents?
My grandma, my mother's mother, lived with us, but she passed away when I was 3 years old. But I still remember her.
What was her name?
Leah
Her last name?
Grau. Leah Grau.
What was education like for you?
I was always the first or the second in my class. I had another friend who passed away, Hilda Rubinger. And one year I was the first, and the second year she was the first. We were very good students. So,
Did you ever think you would like to study to be anything special?
no, we didn't have any plans. I didn't know. That time somehow we didn't think for the future, how it's going to be. We just lived for the day. We were happy. We were young kids. I left the house when I was 17. That's when I went away to Czernowitz.
You said that Berhomet was a small town. Were there many Jews in the town?
Yes, there was, I don't remember how many Jews, but in the main streets were all Jews. And the other behind them were the peasants. But the Jews lived fine. We had a store, a grocery store, and my father was in the lumber business. And so we did fine.
Who worked the store?
My mother and all the kids were helping. I had to stay on a little chair to reach the scale, but I did. We all had to help.
When you think about you and your sisters spending time together, what do you remember most that you would do together?
I know my sister was very good to me. I remember when my friends came on Shabbos to pick us up, and I had my chores to do and I didn't do it, she would say, "You go ahead, I'll do your chores for you." It's not like I see sometimes sisters, you have to do your job. But
Which?
no, that was to take out the dishes from the table. We couldn't wash it until in the evening because it's Shabbat. But we had to, and always we had to carry, there was a sick lady living all alone, and we had to carry lunch for her. And so even the lunch she would carry instead of me. She was a wonderful sister.
Which sister was that?
That was the second after me. There was Leah. And I had Sylvia. She was, I felt she was spoiled, but she was a very, very good girl. I don't remember any bad girls in our town. Somehow everybody belonged to the Mizrahi, and we all behaved very good. When I look back and I see what's going on here, I tell, gee, we were wonderful people there.
Do you remember any anti-Semitism in your
Well,
town?
I did, but somehow we were, my parents probably, they didn't like, yeah, they made us keep open the store on Shabbat, which was terrible for my parents. So I would sit in the store, my parents went to shul, and somebody came to the door and asked for something, and said, we don't have it. We don't have it. But that was uh, because otherwise they wouldn't, we couldn't, it was Shabbat. We couldn't think of selling in the store on Shabbat. So that was, but I didn't stay there until they took away my parents. I just heard from other people that they were our closest neighbors, who we were very good friends, came in, told my mother to take off her shoes, and took out the plate from the stove, and took out whatever they could take while my parents were still home.
Now, when you say that, was that later on or before,
Yeah.
after you left for Chernovitz?
That's right. It was, I think, in 1940.
When you talked about there was anti-Semitism and they didn't let you open the store, who were they?
Uh, there was the mayor. We had a mayor, and he had soldiers there, soldaten we used to call them, and they was watching. They were going up and down the street to see that we sure have the store open. So we felt very bad about it. Other in school, I didn't feel it because I was a good student and I was always in the front because I was so short. So we didn't have any problem in school.
What about walking on the streets? Would you ever hear name calling?
No, not while I was a child. Not when.
Did you ever hear your parents talk about any anti-Semitic
Yeah,
things?
they talked.
What would you hear?
Well, they were talking and they would say, "Gee, I think like that would never happen." In Austria, because Bukovina used to be Austria, and Austria was, and they behaved very good to the Jews. Right now, when I hear Austria, I think they wouldn't be proud of them, my parents.
When you say Bukovina, what do you mean by that?
It's a part of the country. Before the First War, it belonged to Austria-Hungary. So my parents were born that time. Then, after Second War, they gave the Bukovina to Romania. And my parents used to call them, they came in barefooted, they came in with pastelas, I don't know, things that you make by your hand. And they just looked at them like they're so plain, they're not intelligent like the Austrian. So they didn't like it. They really didn't like it. But they didn't speak Romanian. The children spoke Romanian because we went to school. But we didn't speak in the house Romanian. On the street we spoke German, and in the house Yiddish. That's how we managed. So if my parents need something in Romanian, they would call us.
Were there any other languages besides the Yiddish and the German?
Yeah, Ukrainian. We had a Ukrainian maid, and she spoke with us Ukrainian so that we knew how to talk Ukrainian too. So when the Russians came in, it's very similar to Russian language. So we could manage, and I went to school in Chernovitz to learn Russian.
Well, did you have any Jewish education as a young girl in your home?
Yeah, I went to Cheder since I was 3 years old. And just like the boys, my father had 3 girls, and he says they're going to study they're going to be 3 boys. That's why. It's not going to be any difference. And he sent us to Cheder.
Was there ever any opposition to that from the religious community?
No. The, and then, but German, they sent us to private. We had every day an hour of German language. My mother said if a girl doesn't know German, then she is just very uneducated, very plain. You have to have German.
How would you describe your economic status?
Well, we had to pay a lot of taxes. That's what I remember a lot. My father used to say, it's just terrible. I don't know if we'd be able to keep the store because that's how much taxes they were charging. One time I remember at the end, that probably was anti-Semitic. They came in and wanted to take away our bedding because we didn't pay the big amount, the whole amount of taxes. So I remember my mother ran out and borrowed money to pay him right away so they wouldn't take away our bedding.
And was this still the Romanians?
Pardon me?
Was it still the Romanians at that time?
Yeah, it was Romanian.
What did you know about the rise of Hitler and the Nazi Party?
We used to sometimes get a newspaper, a German, and that's why we found out what's going on. That's other. 38 was nothing in our place. It was the same. And 39, which was going on already, the war, but we didn't know too much about it. But when the Russian came in, it was 1940. That's when they let us know what's going on over there.
What did they tell you?
They told us there is a war and they're going to do very bad things, and we thought, gee, they're stupid, what are they telling us? But then we found out that in 1940 that the Germans came into Poland, and we were close on the border with Poland, but they weren't in our place yet. I remember when the soldiers went through French soldiers came through our town. They went to go to fight against the Germans, and they went out, and we all brought out food for them. And the French soldiers went through our town.
Were you able to communicate with them?
I think yes, because they spoke German too. In Europe, everybody spoke 2-3 languages. So they was telling us that they're going, I don't remember to what country they went. They're on the way to go to fight back the Germans. We didn't understand much about it. Okay, they're going to fight. But then, when the Germans came into the Bukovina, that's when we knew what they were talking about.
When was that?
That was in 1940, and the end of 1940. So, that was a bad time for us. They took away our store, and my father didn't do any more business with the lumber, and my mother saved some flour from our store, and she baked bread and sold it. That's how we lived.
Did your parents make any other preparations, either to leave or talk about ever leaving?
No, they didn't. I know that time I went away to Chernowitz because my parents had a store. Then they take the girls to carry rocks from the river, from the Chermush, to the street to build streets. That's when I said, I'm not going to do that. That's when I went to Chernowitz.
And when was that? What year?
That was in the beginning of 41, yeah.
Beginning of 1941.
Yeah.
What did you tell your parents? What did you say that you were
I
going to
said,
do?
I am not going to do that. I don't want to do that. And my parents, that's the first time that I didn't listen to my parents. I said, I'm going to go, and my mother didn't give me any money for the trip because I went to my friend that I told you that Hilda Rubinger, I borrowed $30 in a suitcase. I packed my stuff and I went with a train to Chernowitz. I had their relatives. I went to them, and I stayed by a relative, and then I registered for school, and I went to, somebody told me where I can go to work, and I worked. I was happy there. I just worried about my parents. Then my father used to come once in 2 weeks. He didn't have anything to do, so he bought a wagon and 2 horses, and he came to Chernowitz, and he brought wood lumber to Chernowitz, and on the way back he bought bread, sugar, um, gasoline, naphtha. That was to light the house. We didn't have there any electricity. And I would buy it for him meantime, because you couldn't just go in and buy. I worked and I joined the Consomol, and I could go in a store and buy anything I wanted. So I used to buy, and he would take it home to the family.
You said you joined the Kosomal. What is that?
The Consomol is a youth organization in Russia. And if you work someplace, you need to join it. And I worked. And it helped me. When I worked, I knitted on knitting machines. You make sweaters. They put up a norma on my work and checked me, and because I wasn't Kosovo, I had a privilege, and they put it up 300%, that I make 300% of the norma. And so I get better money, and my life was easier because I joined. My father was mad at me that I joined. He says, they are our enemy. Why do you go and join it? I says, look, we have to live. That's it.
You said you lived with a relative
Yeah.
in Chernovitz. Who was the relative?
And there was a cousin, and their name was Vizhnitzer. And I didn't pay money, but I bought stuff and brought it home because they didn't work and they couldn't buy any stuff. They had to stay in long lines to get something. And I could just go in any store and get whatever I need.
Did you feel there was any anti-Semitism now in Chernovitz that you were there?
I didn't feel it, but it was. It was. But they wanted me, after I joined, everything was okay, they wanted me to go with somebody with a truck to pick up the rich people. That's when I said, no, that I'm not going to do. So they let me go by without doing it. I didn't.
Who wanted you to go on this truck?
In every factory or in every place there was a presidatel. There was a person who belonged to the party and was managing the stuff. So that was a man there, a presidatel, and he asked me, you have to go to pick up. I says, I'm not going. That's it. And they let it go by. I could work, but then when the German advanced, the Russian had to pack up and go. That day I wasn't feeling good and I didn't come to work, and he came to look around for me to take all the Komsomols to Russia, with them. Well, I wasn't there, so I couldn't go with them. So, and I was glad because I thought that I, uh, I want to go. I found out already my parents were already taken out of their home and sent to Stroženec, to another city. And they let me know that they're taking them to Jadenec, to a city in what is it called? In Moldova. That time it was Bessarabia, but right now it's afterwards they call it Moldova. And at that time, maybe a few weeks later, they took us to the ghetto in Czernowitz. They put it. It was a Jewish. How did they call it? Well, like it is, like here was used to be Bolhaiz, where all the Jews lived, but not really all. Some of them didn't like to live there together, so I didn't live in that. So they took us to there, and we stayed there. And some people tried to buy themselves out. They gave gold and they gave everything, and they went back to the home. But I said I want to go because I want to meet my parents. I didn't know that they're going to put us in different places, that I'll never meet my parents again. So I stayed there.
Before you go any further, what year was this now?
You know, it was, I think, the end of 41. Yeah, that was at the end of 41.
And what word had you had about your parents at that time?
I just heard that they're in Jadenec, and I was waiting to go there. But they didn't send us there. They sent us to, what did they say? Marculest. They sent us to Marculest.
What was the life like in the ghetto at Czernowitz?
We didn't do anything. We just was waiting for something to happen to us. And whatever they didn't, we could go out and buy some food. But, you know, somehow it was something like hanging over us. We didn't know what is going to come, so we are all sitting and just waiting.
Who was giving the orders at that time?
Germans was around, but Czernowitz